Mama Susan, and the family. If I was to talk about Jaramogi, it would take a long time. But let me say, on this day, at this hour, I was at the Aga Khan Hospital. I had come on a mission where Jaramogi had instructed me to write a letter to Nelson Mandela, which he wanted to be delivered. And he wanted a meeting between him and Nelson Mandela before Mandela became the president of South Africa. Jaramogi left us in January 1994, and Mandela became president in May 1994. So it is a day I never really want sometimes to think about, because I think history today would have been different. But I'm grateful to Olaro Tunu, because the things that you said about Jaramogi, I would not want to repeat them, but because Jaramogi left us with a legacy of struggle. And I think those virtues of Jaramogi are important for us today. The virtue of wisdom, the virtue of justice, and the virtue of courage. And more importantly, when we're talking about courage, is not sheer bravery. It's more than that. And for Jaramogi, it also meant the commitment to the truth. So I would feel happy if I could say in a few words what Jaramogi desired of us, those that he left behind. And I just want to read from his own book. And by the way, if you read Not Yet Uhuru, I want you to read the introduction by Jaramogi, read the preface by Kwame Nkrumah, and what I call a preamble and a dedication. These three parts of Jaramogi's book are very important, thinking about the struggle today. And this is what Jaramogi said in this seminal book about the time. And I quote, "When the political temperature," I may paraphrase in order to shorten, "when the political temperature was highest, the youth and the women were the greatest single force of our struggle and its nerve center. The women created the political consciousness," and I'm grateful what Jan Mbogo is saying. "The women created the political consciousness which sent the people to the polls, and it is they who voted to sweep our first independence government to power. The youth and women galvanized the people on whose support we rode to victory. They were never afraid of bullets, tear gas, or jail." And then in his dedication in this book, what does he say? And I quote, "I dedicate this book, the story of my life and political struggle, to the youth of Kenya, my country. As the spirit of the youth carried us through our hardest days in the fight for independence, so on the youth, the youth will shape our new country, Kenya." So, looking at the struggle from 1994, without the youth, I think we would not have been where we are today. Without the women, I don't think we would be where we are today. And I want to repeat that it is true that when there were meetings about the leadership of Ford, Jaramogi's preferred candidate was Wangari Maathai. And you remember, to the end, in the elections that came, Wangari Maathai still advocated for Jaramogi to become the third president of the Republic of Kenya. Now, when you talk about courage, I have never seen somebody of that age so courageous. I remember an incident that when we went to Garissa for a political meeting, and we carried all the political heavyweights to Garissa, including Martin Shikuku, Kimani Wanyoike, Dennis Akumu, Buya, and at the airport in Garissa, the military said we could not go through to go and hold a political meeting in Garissa. And when one of the people in Garissa offered a combi which found its way into the military, into the airport, some of us, whom I shall not mention, refused to enter that pickup. But Martin Shikuku was always very loud, sat at the back of the, of the combi. And Jaramogi, of all the people who sat on the front, and he ordered the driver to drive through the gate and the barrier that the military had put there. And we managed to pass through and get to Garissa town and held a meeting. And I remember Abuya crying that, oh, I've been hit by a stone, damu inatoka kwa mkono yangu. And Jaramogi said, unataka itoke maji. We ended up having a very successful meeting on that day. The second thing, if you read the book between what Nkrumah says and what Jaramogi says, is that on issues of principles we should be steadfast. We should steadfast. And he cries in that book that the independence government was taken over by people who did not believe in the struggle. And today in Kenya, and I'm sorry, my friend Kuria is here, and you're my very good friend. If you look at Kenya today, part of the problem that we have today is that those who are in power were never part of the struggle. And in this, we face a lot of challenges, and we must rededicate the struggle in Kenya to make sure that the progressive movement attains what Jaramogi desired of us, and is never too late. And I thank Raila ODINGA being steadfast in keeping this flame of freedom burning all the time. And I know it can be done. The other thing that I remember about Jaramogi, and this is the last point, I think we are tired and late. There's a time when through Jobo Mino, he had organized for a meeting in London between him and Tiny Roland to ask for funds for the campaign. And